Assalamualaikum. In this lecture, we will discuss question tags. We quite frequently use them, but we might not be aware of the structure and how do we use them. So in this lecture, we will discuss in detail where do we use question tags and some rules about question tags. So let's first discuss what are question tags. So question tags are basically is a small question that is attached or tagged to the end of a sentence. Okay, so there may be one sentence, and after the sentence, we add small question to ask. Okay, so rather than repeating the main verb, so rather than making the statement once again that we already have talked about, okay, we add a form of be, okay, or an auxiliary verb or some model in the form of a tag. Okay, let's see some examples, then the definition will be clearer. All right, first let's see. These are the short additions to sentences asking for agreement or confirmation. So we make a statement and then we ask whether the listener or the other person agrees with the statement or what he has to say about the statement, whether he confirms the statement or not. Okay, so we do not ask the question repeatedly. So we make a statement and then ask the question for agreement or confirmation. Negative verbs in the text are usually contracted. All right, so the verbs that are used in the negative form, we use them usually in their contracted form. The subject of the tag is always a pronoun. Okay, so these are the things that we need to remember. Let's see, here are some common question tags. After negative statements, we use the ordinary interrogative. So here are the examples which would make it clearer what are question tags. So when we make a negative statement, okay, like here, you didn't see him. All right, so this is one statement that we are making. You didn't see him. Okay, then we are saying, did you? So did you is the tagged question that we have attached to this statement. All right, so negative statements are made interrogative, okay, by asking the affirmative part here, adding here. And the affirmative statements are attached by a negative tag, like here. He helped you. This is a statement. That means we are saying that he helped you. But then we are asking for confirmation. Didn't he? Okay, that means we are confirming that whether he helped you or not. All right, so we are making a statement here. He helped you. And then we are confirming. Didn't he? So the thing that we notice here is after the negative statements, we add an affirmative tag. All right, and after an affirmative statement, we add a negative tag. So here we see that this is the basic structure of a tag question. So we make a positive statement, snow is white. Okay, so taking this verb to be, we make a negative tag, isn't it? And we see the negative verb is in contracted form, isn't it? So the rule that we already discussed, that the negative form is used in contracted form. Okay, and the thing that we noticed was for negative statements, for example, you don't like him. This is the statement that we are making, but we are giving it a margin, do you? That means we are providing both the options. You don't like him, do you? So after a negative statement, we follow it by a positive tag. And in the positive statement, like snow is white, we are giving the alternative as isn't it? All right. So we see here the statements that we discussed. Okay, so the definition is now clear. The letter part that we attached or tagged at the end of the sentence. So such sentences in which there is a statement and then there is the attached question. Those statements are called question tags or tag questions. So we see that rather than repeating the whole question, like here is the example, snow is white. Okay, so we are not saying snow is white or is snow white. Okay, so we are not repeating the whole statement, rather we are adding this small contracted form to make it a tag question. Okay, so the definition is clearer now. Rather than repeat the main verb, a form of a be or an auxiliary verb or a model verb is used in the tag. By tag we mean it is attached to that. All right. Okay, so we see that we are using them for agreement or confirmation. Okay, then we see that the negative verbs are used in their contracted form, and we also saw that the subject of the tag is usually the pronoun because we are not repeating the sentence, we are just adding the verb and the pronoun from the previous state. All right, so here are the examples. Anne can't swim. Can she? Okay, so we see the can is a model here. Okay, so model verb that we have already used here. Anne can't swim. Okay, so we are taking this verb and we are putting it here. Now we are using the pronoun which is referring to Anne. So it's clear that this is the statement that we made. Anne can't swim. Now we are attaching the tag can she. So we are taking the same model and then we are using the pronoun here for Anne. Anne is the name of the girl. Okay. So this isn't Tom, is it? Okay, so similarly in this example, we use the negative statement and then we use the positive tag. Okay, so let's see these examples. When we have the affirmative statements, that means the statements are in positive. He helped you. Okay, and the tag is negative. Didn't he? We are using did here because it's this second form here. So we would go with did. Mary was there. So we are seeing that we are using the same verb here. All right, so we're just putting it in the negative form here to complete the statement. And when we are using negative, it is contracted. By contracted, we are saying we would not say he helped you, did not he. Okay, we would not write that. That would be inappropriate. We would use didn't he. Okay, wasn't she, and so on. Let's see some more examples. Okay, so the basic structure you need to remember is we have to provide both the statements, both the alternatives, positive, negative, negative, positive. Okay. Okay, examples of tag questions after negative statements. So here are a few examples. Peter doesn't smoke, does he? Okay, so we have negative statements and then we have the positive tag. Okay, so for does, we take he for Peter as a pronoun. All right, Anne isn't studying music, is she? Okay, so it's just the same structure, the same tense, and the same form we would be using, just adding the tag at the end. Okay, so see these other examples. In this case, we have Bill didn't want to go, did he? Okay, here we have haven't. You haven't ridden a horse for a long time, have you? Okay, so this is the way we ask the question. Okay, they couldn't understand him, could they? Okay, so this is how we are pronouncing and making these tag statements and tag questions. Okay, to confirm or to ask for agreement. All right, you can look at these examples. Note that the statements containing words such as neither, no, okay, these are the adjectives, none, no one, nobody, nothing, scarcely, barely, hardly, ever, seldom are treated as negative. Okay, these all are the words that are kind of negative in their sense and they would be followed by an ordinary interrogative tag and that would not be negative. So in the statements when we do not have the negative with verb here, but these words, okay, like neither, like nobody, nothing, all or seldom or hardly, okay, so these words are used, so they would be treated as negative because here we would understand from the context that it is negative. So the alternate that we would be providing in the form of tag here would be ordinary interrogative. For example, no salt is allowed, is it? Okay, we would not say no salt is allowed, isn't it? Okay, because that would be like negative in the first statement, negative in the next statement, next part of a sentence. So in such a case, when we have no, nothing, okay, hardly or such words which give us the negative sense, okay, there could be other words other than these. So in that case, we would use ordinary interrogative. Like nothing was said, was it? Peter hardly ever goes to parties. By hardly means it is like very rare, so it is almost no. Okay, so he doesn't go to parties, does he? So this is the sense that this is the negative statement and then this is the ordinary interrogative. Okay, we have to be careful with these statements that we are not doubling the negative or so on. All right, so this is what you need to keep in mind. Moving on. When the subject of the sentence is anyone, anybody, no one, nobody, neither, we use the pronoun they as a subject of the tag. Okay, so when we know that we have these words, subjects, anybody, okay, so anybody could be like more than one people, all right? And when we're using neither or nobody, in that case, we would generalize it to they. So the part when we have to choose the pronoun for, then we would use they. I don't suppose anyone will volunteer, will they? So here we are talking about anyone. Anyone means can mean by one person, or anyone can mean more than one person. So generally we would use they in the tag. Okay, again, no one would object. Would they? Okay, we would not say would he or would she. Rather, we would generalize it to would they. We have already talked about this use of they when we were using or discussing pronouns. Okay, so when we do not know the subject, okay, so in that case we would use they. For you remember, I gave you the example that someone knocks the door and we do not know whether it is he or she. In that case, we would know that it is one person, but we would again use they. Okay, they are waiting for you, but we do not know whether it's he or whether it's she. So in that case, again, for anyone and no one, we would choose they is the pronoun. All right, neither of them complained, did they? Neither of them means no one. So again, in such a case, when these are the words used as the subject of the sentence, we would follow them with they as a pronoun. Okay, so these things you have to remember when you are writing the sentences in question tags. Okay, so here are a few rules for different tenses. Let's practice them a little bit. Okay, with the simple present tense, we use don't or doesn't in the tag. So we know that what is the helping verb for simple present? Do or does. Okay, so that's how it would go here. Edward lives here, doesn't he? Okay, or they live here, do they? Okay, so something like that. So the same helping verb would go in the tag as well. With the simple past tense, we use didn't. Okay, so we know for simple past we use did or okay. So here in the tag didn't would go. You found your passport, didn't you? Okay, but if it was here present simple, so where here we would use the word as. But since it's past simple, so we are going for didn't. After all other tenses, we just put the auxiliary verb into the negative interrogative. So whatever the auxiliary we would have here, okay, Mary is coming tomorrow, isn't she? So Mary is coming tomorrow, isn't she? Okay, he has heard the news, hasn't he? So here if we have has, so we will just put it here, hasn't she, and make it a negative contracted verb and then the same pronoun. Okay, I hope these things are clear. If you practice them, it will be more easier for you to understand. Just go with the same verb that is used in the previous part of the sentence and then put it into the tag. Okay, and you need to remember that we would go negative for the positive and positive for the negative. All right. So negative interrogative tags without contractions are possible, but the word order is different. Okay, so when we were saying that we would not use we have to use the contracted form, but in some cases we can also use it negative without contractions, but we would not say did not you, rather we would say did you not. Okay, because this is how we develop a question. We know that first we put the helping verb, then the subject, then not. Okay, so this is how the order would change. You saw him, we would say did you not. We would not say did not you, that would be wrong. So this would be the correct statement. You saw him, did you not? Okay, but this is much less usual form, so we often use the contracted one. You saw him, didn't you? Okay, very straightforward and very simple and most commonly used one. Okay, so these are the things you keep in mind. Then we have comment tags. So similarly, we have a question tag. We also have comment tags. Then where we are basically making a statement. Okay, so these are formed with the auxiliary verbs, and they are just like the question takes. The formation of the simple sentence structure is same, but they are not a question in themselves, they are rather a comment. Okay, but after an affirmative statement we use an ordinary interrogative tag, and after a negative statement we use a negative interrogative. That means we are not giving the both options to the listener or the person who has to respond. So because we are not asking a question here, now we are making a comment. Okay, so when we are making a comment, we just have to give a statement. So we will say, you saw him, did you? Because generally when we were making a question tag, we would say, you saw him, didn't you? Okay, so the statement was positive and the tag was negative. But when we are making a statement, okay, so we would make it both positive. You saw him, did you? That means really you saw him. Oh, so you saw him. So that is the meaning of this sentence. So because this is a comment tag in which both of them would be positive. So you do not have to confuse them with the question tag, and you have to remember, if you make this statement and if you refer to or if you intend to make a question tag and you are making both of them a positive, the sentence would rather be a comment rather than a question. Okay, so you have found a job, have you? Oh, so you have found a job. This is the meaning of this sentence. So we see that there is no negation, so that means both of them are positive. Okay, so this is how we develop comment tags. Comment text can also be spoken in answer to an affirmative or negative statement. All right. So I'm living in London now. Are you? Okay. So that means when I say, I'm telling you, I'm living in London now, and you just ask me this, are you? Okay. I didn't pay Paul, or I didn't take the lecture. Then someone would ask me, okay, they would not ask this first statement. Okay, this is something I've already said. Now you would ask me, didn't you? Only this tag part. Okay, we usually do this. Okay, for example, say I teach you. The person would say, oh, do you? Okay, so this is how we develop comment text. We only use the second part of the tag question. Okay, so the statement would only be this tag. So you can develop so many other examples. So we would see that we would use the same way we were using pronoun. Okay, same verb here, the way it's did here, so it repeated here. But negative would go with negative, and the positive would go with positive. So this is the difference between comment tag and a question tag. All right. Okay, where do we use and why do we need question tags? Rather, why do not we use like simple हम लोग जिसे question करते हैं? Why don't we use that? We use question tags because they are sometimes indicate politeness, or maybe we are emphasizing the point, or we are being ironical. Okay, and also because we may suggest confidence or lack of confidence. Okay, so we, as I told you, we are trying to confirm this statement. Okay, or we are trying to ask for agreement on the statement or the question. In such cases we use question tags, or like we can repeat both the sentences, but that would be awkward, like two times repeating the same question on the same statement. So when we make a statement, we ask for confirmation or agreement, then we use a tag question. Okay, they may be confrontational or tentative in their nature. Okay, they might be like ironical questions, or they might confront someone. You did that, didn't you? Okay, that means if I asked you to do something and I want to confront you now, then I would say it ironically, I know that you did it. Okay, then I would say, didn't you? So in such a way, when you're trying to make it confrontational, or sometimes when you're trying to be nice or ironical, in such cases you would use question tags. Okay, in legal setting, tag questions can be found in leading question. So sometimes we begin our proceedings with such tag questions. Okay, so these were the uses of tag questions. There are some more rules that I wanted to share with you. Okay, so here are a few rules for tag questions. I will briefly discuss them. Okay, so in the statement, when after let's, the statement with let, the tag begins with shall. So these are kind of little tricky statements or tricky rules that we need to remember about tag questions. Okay, these would be a little bit additional to the simpler use of tag questions. Let's see. So when we have statements that start with let's, in that case, we would make the tag with shall. All right. So let's invite the neighbors over for dinner on the weekend. Shall we? Okay. So in this statement, like, let's do this. Shall we? Okay. So we often ask for, like, we suggest something that we need to do. For example, let's have a party. Then to confirm, shall we? Like, what's your opinion about that? Okay. So in that case, we would add the tag with shall. Rule number two, use aren't in text to mean I am not. So you do not use am and I. Okay, for we know that for I we use am as a verb, but here the correct use for the tag would be aren't I. Okay, you would find this structure. Okay, this structure might be used, but that would be really formal. So usually we used, and most often you will find aren't I. So I am on time, aren't I? Okay, aren't I? Not exactly aren't I? Aren't I? Okay, so I'm on time, not I'm in time. Okay, so we would the correct use would be aren't I. So these are the things that you need to remember. Basically, these are certain exceptional rules. Okay, additional rules. Okay, number three, you won't use won't for polite request text. So when we have to make it a little bit more polite or sound, when we're talking a little bit more formal context, we would use won't. Okay, you will bring the other things. Won't you? We can say, will you? But for making it more polite, won't you? Okay, so won't you would be used for polite request tags. Okay, so when we are asking a question in a form of a request, okay, so you would say you'll bring the other things or you'll do my work, won't you? Okay, so in that sense, when we are trying to be polite or making a request, we would use won't. Moving on, number four, use will or would with imperative sentences. So whenever we have imperative sentences of commands, okay, in that case we would use will or would in the take part. Okay, wait here until I return, will you? Okay, for example, shut the door, will you? So that would be polite because we are making a statement that you have to do this. We are making an imperative sentence or we are commanding something, but then we are using it with we are giving you the person receiver an option as well. So we discussed that how we use tag questions for politeness in our sentences. So generally we can say shut the door, okay, wait here until I return. So this is a kind of command, but then we are adding the tag part, will you? So that is a kind of polite in nature because we are asking you as well that will you wait for me, okay, will you please shut the door or something like that. So in that case, we are giving space to your opinion as well. So this is how we use take questions for politeness as well. So whenever we have to make imperative statements, the later part would carry will you or would you. Okay. Next rule is you mustn't use with the modal must. Okay. This must be the address, mustn't it? Okay. So this is how this is we use the negative form of must. Two endings are possible when have is the main verb of the sentence. Okay, so these are the two statements, but we usually go with the British English one. You have enough money, haven't you? Okay, so in British English, we use the similarly, haven't you as a tag. Okay, but the North American English, they would use don't you. Okay, so you when you hear this statement, don't confuse it, so it's wrong. Okay, so since we have a lot of influence of North America, so then we would see that don't you is also used in the case, so it's not wrong, but usually we would say haven't you. All right, let's see. Number seven, use pronouns for people, not proper names in question text. So we already discussed that we would not repeat the proper name, rather we would use a pronoun for them. Okay, so this is again a common mistake that we might do. Isn't Paul, yes, we cannot use, rather we would use a pronoun, he or she or they and so on. Okay, use it in a question tag when the sentence includes the words this or that. So we saw a previous example in the slides that when we have this or that in the sentence, okay, this is your pen. So for that we would use it. Isn't this nahi kahenge hum log? We would rather say it. Isn't it? Okay. Similarly, that, okay, that is your pet. Okay, that is your cat, maybe something like that. So for that we would use it in the tag question. Isn't it? Okay. Number 9. Use they in a question tag when the sentence include these or those. Okay, so if we saw that we have this or that in the sentence, we were using it. Now if we have those or these in the sentence, then we would use they. Those are your sandals, aren't they? Okay, so here we can use they for common nouns other than people as well. Okay, so you do not have to confuse. Whenever we have those or these, we'll have to choose the they pronoun. Okay, aren't they? Number 10. Use there in a question tag when the sentences include there plus a form of be. Okay, so let's see. There is a lot of work to do, isn't there? Okay, so we are saying there is a lot of work to do. So we see if there is a form of be, any form of be is like is mr and so on. Okay, so there is, so yeah, in such case we would choose there to be used in the tag as well. So there is a lot of work to do today, isn't there? Okay, so we're saying the same auxiliary verb and then there. Number 11. Use they in a question tag when the sentence includes indefinite pronouns. Okay, so these are the indefinite pronouns that we already talked about. So here for everybody, everyone and nobody, we would use they. We've already talked about this rule. I hope it's clear now. You can see more examples here. Everyone is here now, aren't they? Nobody has eaten yet, have they? Okay, now here we are using a positive because it's nobody here. So it's already negative in a sense. So here we would say a positive statement. Number 12 and the last. Use didn't in a question tag when the sentence includes the verb used to. We know when we are using used to, it's giving us a sense of past. Okay, so you used to go skating very often, didn't you? You used to live there, didn't you? So statements like that. Okay, whenever we have used to, then we would say didn't you. All right, so here you can see this website where I've chosen this, and then there are the rules here. There are other things, and sentence pattern and introduction of tag questions. Okay, study zone. So you can also access this website, so it will be clearer for you. All right, so here we were. So if you have any questions or any comments, you can write in the comment section, or you can note them down and then we can discuss them in the live session. Thank you so much. I hope you start practicing these question takes, and then you know, you would really enjoy these sentences because they would make you a little bit more frequent and natural in your English pronunciation and English language speaking. Okay, thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.